So I'd like to start off by saying that in no way was I bullied or discriminated against. However, by quiet kid, I mean I was really reserved to myself. I didn't really have many friends that I enjoyed hanging out with, and I feel like sometimes there's always this one kid in the background of the classroom that's just completely shut off from everyone else. And I was that kid once in seventh grade. And let me tell you something, okay? A lot of the times, it's not really because of a specific cause or something that triggered this behavior. Sometimes it just happens. Like things fall into place, friend groups, they get together, and gradually they just form different groups that you're not a part of. And it's not your fault, it's not anyone else's fault. But it's really easy to get into this habit of thinking that, oh, like, this isn't my fault and it's other people, and you get really oversensitive about very minor interactions because you lack so much social interaction, to the point where someone could say hi and you would have to overthink like their tone, the way they said it, their expressions when saying it, because you get so like hypersensitive towards these very small things and you're so focused on them. It really messes with your mental state. And well, obviously humans are social creatures, so when that happens, you kind of drown yourself in this self-pity where you feel like people are watching you, or like they're talking shit about you, they're talking bad about you, when really they don't really give a shit about you, but you still think that way because it's inevitable, because you don't have any human interactions. That's why you're so focused on these very minor things, and they really hurt your brain, because you're wasting time thinking about things that shouldn't even be that deep, right? And when you do this so often, you kind of victimize yourself way too much, to the point where your brain gets illusioned into thinking that you are, in a way, like bullied or like being left out, right? But it's not anyone's fault and it's not your fault. But your brain will condition yourself to think, because you're projecting your own harsh feelings and issues on other people. And that's the way I thought, because I thought, like, oh, I was so lonely and nobody liked me, and that's everyone else's fault, and I made it everyone else's problem. But it really isn't anyone else's fault. It's just nobody's fault. It just happens, and it will pass, and it will be fine in like 6 months. But during that time, it just feels awful. And when you get into that mindset, you have this feeling where you're constantly being watched. And like when you're this quiet, obviously there are certain kinds of people who will baby you and treat you like this animal, like in this cage, where they'll be like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, why are you so emo?" and stuff like that. And it really gets to your head, but they don't care. They don't give a shit, okay? And like to them, you're not even a part of their lives at all. But it gets to your head, right? It gets to you. So basically, if you're in that situation right now, just stop thinking about it. Just focus on yourself, because it will pass. High school isn't forever. Middle school isn't forever. It will pass with time, right? But it's really hard because recently I've also, now that I'm like outside of the cage, right? Metaphor. Um, I'd see other people in class who are extremely quiet with no friends, and I can't say it's always for no reason, because sometimes there's like a dark history or past linked towards that, but I just see myself in them, because now I feel like I'm observing them and they're the animal in the cage because they're the quiet kid. Well, I'm not dehumanizing, I'm not trying to dehumanize them, but when I was in that position, I would dehumanize myself as well, and I would have all these negative thoughts that, oh, they're watching me and all that stuff. They really don't care. They really do not give a shit, and it's not, and I don't believe in the thing that, like, oh, if they bully you or if they hate on you, they're jealous of you, or maybe, they have something going on at home. Most of the time they don't. It's just something that happens to people, and it'll pass. That's it. I don't they don't care, bro. After, like, you think that they bullied you or made fun of you for, like, those 5 seconds during math class, they will never think about it ever again. And after 3 years, you're still thinking about it, right? So when you really understand this, you just stop caring. Okay, like, if you have no friends right now, well, it'll pass. It'll pass. It'll genuinely pass. No one's gonna remember you in 3 years. Nobody. And yeah, it's harsh, but it's true. And you gotta move on. And when I was in that position, I really thought that I was gonna live the rest of my life like being the quiet kid and being super insecure and introverted and not having any friends. And a part of me is still disgusted about my past self, and not in a way that I'm like, ew, like she was so quiet, but I was drowning so much in self-pity that I didn't have like any energy to actually think about, oh, maybe, I could make a change. No, I thought I was doomed. I thought this was my fate. And like, because I was so unsociable, I was so introverted, that this is just my nature. And like, these things aren't really like anything predetermined. They're not. And once you realize that, you'll know when it will pass, and you'll look back and you'll be like, damn, that was a place that was definitely a time. And you'll only think back on it like every month, every 2 months or so, and all you think is, damn, even though you were miserable at the time, all you really think is, damn, I guess that kind of sucked. I should have picked myself back up sooner. And that's it. And I'm not trying to, like, diminish anyone's suffering or anything, but those experiences, because you think so hard about it, you think that it's a really big deal and that it's gonna affect your future and it's gonna change you. But in like a year, it's gonna change. Like, you're gonna be better and you're gonna be really different, especially in your teenage years. And none of those bullies or people who made fun of you are even gonna remember your face. They won't. And that's okay, because you don't have to remember them either. You can just move on in your life. And nowadays that I'm like not quiet anymore, I look back on my past experiences and I see these other kids who walk alone with their heads down, and I'm just hit with this sense of like suffocating nostalgia, because I know exactly how they feel. And I'll just think to myself, damn, like, it'll pass for them too, hopefully. And I try to be nice to people like that, but then I think to myself that, oh, that feels like I'm kind of pitying them as well, because I'm still not great at social interactions, okay? And not gonna lie, like, being the quiet kid made me care more about school reputation now that I'm not quiet anymore, because I was so afraid of going back to the phase where I was always seen as gloomy or alone, that right now, even when I do want to be alone, I can't gather up the courage to just sit alone or just have fun by myself, because I'm so scared that people will perceive me as the same kind of person I used to be. And even though I'm not actually lonely, I'm extremely afraid of people thinking that I am. or that people thinking I have no friends. And I know they don't care, but because I was so conditioned to think that way when I was in middle school, now I can't really function without the external validation that I'm not like that anymore and that I've changed. And it's kind of sad to think about because a lot of the time I'm just not feeling very social, but I just can't. I just feel incredibly frustrated when I sit alone or when I'm by myself because I'm so scared of how others will see me because I want to be disconnected from my past self so freaking bad. And it's just sad because it's just school, it's just high school, like it literally does not matter. But then like the environment messes with your brain so much to the point where you're conditioned to just care about these tiny little things, like like friend groups and all that stuff. But like you don't need to be in a friend group and you don't need to have a best friend. There's so many other things outside of school that you can do. But in that environment, like you have to be there to experience like, you know, the feeling of being left out or feeling FOMO for like things that you don't even want to be in. Cause like I'd see my friends like hanging out or something, and then I would feel FOMO even though I don't even want to go out because I was so conditioned to thinking that I had to be a part of a group or I had to be social and extroverted in order to prove something to myself, to prove that I was worthy of having friends or I was like not ugly and not so pathetic that I couldn't interact with people. And like that's all in the past now, but it still affects me. Why? Because my brain is freaking conditioned, bro. I can't escape. Like my brain is just keeps telling me like, oh, you have to stop being that way. You have to stop being that way. And well, it just kind of sucks and there's no way around it. And I know that like when I go to college or like I won't even remember all this. Honestly, I won't. But when you're present in that time, it feels like it's the end of the world. It feels like, oh, I'm not gonna make it past 18. But that's literally not even gonna, like, when you're 18, you're not even gonna have a second thought about it. But when you're in school, it's just hard, man. So, yeah. So, if you're someone who's struggling with, being isolated or feeling isolation, just know that it's good for character development and it'll probably pass. It will. It will definitely pass. I mean, just, keep on living and one day you'll get to a point in your life where you're thinking back on all of this high school bullshit and you're like, bro, that is so irrelevant. Like, you get your own apartment, you'll make your own breakfast, and maybe when you hear like the birds singing outside, you briefly think about your high school days and you're like, man, that was so long ago, what the hell? And then you just go on with your life because it's really not that serious. At the time, it might feel like it is, but it isn't. And that's all I have.